Hello, my name is Rebecca Sattin, and I'm going to be speaking with you today about working from anywhere. Before joining Worldox as CIO, I spent 25 years working as a law firm IT director. In my 5.5 years here, I've seen a great variation among our clients on how they access their systems remotely. Before COVID-19, most people worked in an office. Some firms had terminal services or Citrix for those who worked remotely periodically, but most people came into the office. That's where their files were, their phones, their colleagues, and their office staff. March of 2020, everything changed. In March of 2020, in fact, things changed very quickly. Whether or not firms had remote work plans in place, they had to put them in place immediately. And at that point, everyone's main concern was ensuring people could continue working. Security concerns were not at the top of people's minds, as keeping the firm in business by enabling everyone to work from anywhere became critical. The initial challenges at the beginning of the pandemic, there were certain challenges with client meetings and collaborating with colleagues. For those clients who are in the same city and state that the firm was, for the most part, they would be in the same boat with COVID restrictions being the same in that general area. But for those people who had clients in other geographic areas, they had to deal with expectations from those who were maybe in less restrictive areas. I know one lawyer whose client in the Netherlands still insisted on meeting in person, but since he couldn't go to the Netherlands and the client couldn't come to the US, they were forced to fly to Aruba to meet. I know it sounds glamorous, but not if you're spending your whole time there in a conference room. Many also had family challenges with childcare or even with just everyone having to work and go to school using the same internet connection. My brother and his wife are both working from home during the pandemic, and their two children are going to school remotely. Their internet connection speed was 100 megabits per second down, but only 10 megabits per second up. So when they talk about an internet connection speed and they have a one number and a slash and another number, the second number, the lower number, is the up speed. So while this might be fine for streaming video where the content is only coming down into your house through that faster inbound connection, a Zoom meeting requires good bandwidth both up and down. So essentially, they were all sort of breaking up on their 4 Zoom meetings because they just didn't have the bandwidth for that. They ultimately upgraded their internet connection, but they also purchased a mesh Wi-Fi system for their home to expand the connectivity to reach more parts of their home. While many firms have had ways for people to work remotely, they may not have had much flexibility with their phone systems. Depending on the phone system, some were able to redirect their office phones to ring on their cell phones or forward the main line to someone. Others just let all calls go to voicemail and return the calls later. Many had some employees coming into the office to handle inbound mail. If they had scanning technology, those who came in to handle the mail would scan it and then route it appropriate once it was in electronic format. Some firms sent everyone home and had them connect to their desktop computers at the office. This was the saving grace for a lot of firms, but in some cases, not all staff had computers at home that they could use to connect. There were supply chain issues in procuring new equipment as well. For firms that used Citrix or Terminal Server, they may not have had enough licenses for everyone back in March, or their systems may not have had enough capacity for everyone to work efficiently at the same time. If some people only had laptops, there may have been challenges with access to applications that were only available from the office. So for anyone who doesn't know, BYOD means bring your own device. The term refers to a situation where people use their personal devices, their personal phones, tablets, and computers to access firm resources. Without centralized control of the device, security is a concern. Is it running a current operating system that's still supported? Is it running a current version of Microsoft Office Suite or one that's compatible with with what you're using at the office? Does it have antivirus installed? Is the drive encrypted in case it's lost or stolen? Are people using their personal cell phones for business calls? Depending on the solution chosen, some firms initially had people accessing firm resources from their personal devices. For those using RDP, Terminal Server, or Citrix, this works well. These solutions are referred to as containerized solutions because essentially all the data stays on the firm's systems instead of having to come down onto those devices. For those who use cloud solutions for all of their software, this puts firm data at risk as working on documents requires that they be downloaded to the personal device. With cloud applications, putting firm data on the same network as other devices in the household, that data could be at risk depending on what other devices exist on the home network. For example, even there are privacy concerns with things like Alexa and Google Home and all sorts of things like that. And in addition to that, there are Internet of Things devices as well that have security issues. On top of this, there could be discovery implications to firm data being stored on personal devices. These issues may not initially have been a concern for many firms because they were scrambling to maintain productivity at the start of the pandemic. Almost a year into it, it's time to reflect back on the changes that were made in haste to review the security of those changes. Now is the time for firms to draft remote work policies. If your firm allows people to use personal devices, you should have a BYOD policy. With regard to firm data, many firms that have such policies specify that the device must be wiped should the person leave the firm to prevent firm data from leaving with them. Another challenge is collaboration with peers. For those firms who already have Office 365 or Microsoft 365, Teams is a great tool to help with that. Others have chosen to use Zoom. It still takes additional planning and effort to maintain that collegiality that exists when working in the same building. Setting regular meetings with colleagues, but keeping them short, can allow people to feel like a team while preventing what has become known as Zoom fatigue. Depending on which collaborative tool your firm uses, some of them can be expanded to have voice over IP capabilities and act as your phone system as well. A year later, we've all learned that we can work well from home. Working from anywhere is becoming a necessity going forward as people have realized that it's cheaper to have remote meetings and attend virtual presentations. The requirement for less commercial real estate has also changed the face of business. Now is the time to reflect on the last year and refine those policies and processes to make working from anywhere more efficient yet also secure. Thank you very much for your time, and if you have any questions for me or for our team, here is our contact information. I hope you have a great time at the ABA Tech Show.